And this is our 12th national conference, so we're very pleased to have so many people here. We've got some exciting stories to share with you. But our first speaker is Tanya Black from Attitude TV. She's going to provide our opening address, and I'm not going to steal her thunder because I know she's going to share her story with us. So I welcome Tanya to the stage.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be speaking in front of you today. I was thrilled to learn that the theme for the Imagine Better conference for 2014 was transition. And to see a program with so many personal stories. As a storyteller, transition tales are gold. And the stories have the power to teach, to inspire others, and to lift expectations for our own lives. I love stories and the words within them. And I often turn to definitions for the start of inspiration. And for the word transition, I found this. A passage from one stage or place to another. So transitions, journeys. Not always a direct or smooth path. We can meticulously plan for it for months, or it can be foisted upon us without warning. Sometimes we have a clear map of where we're going, and other times we're feeling our way in the dark. The major transition in my life wasn't signposted. I didn't even really know what was happening at the time. But I can pinpoint the day the transition ended and a new chapter began, and I knew it had been a success. This major transition started about a year after I became disabled, which was a simple fall that left me paralysed from the waist down. Of course, that in itself was a big transition, a steep learning curve, how to live, how to be in this world, in this new body. At first, I spent a lot of time trying to will my legs to move. I was convinced if I just worked hard enough, if I focused hard enough, I might be able to walk again. It turns out I needed more than an admirable work ethic and delusional self-belief. Another false belief I clung to was that walking again was going to solve all of my problems. I was putting so much energy into this task that I wasn't really living. But several months in, when the grief had subsided, and I was pretty spent by the grueling physical rehabilitation I was putting myself through, I started to think about work. Work. I'd always worked, and had worked hard. I dreamed of one day not working, but never of not being able to work. And there's nothing like losing the ability to contribute that makes you realise the value of it. Until I became disabled, I'd had a long career managing restaurants and working in the wine trade in London. I returned to Auckland to open a small wine bar and restaurant with my brother. We were 2 years down that road when this particular spanner hit the works. I couldn't see myself swanning between tables or pouring drinks behind the bar in a wheelchair. I needed to find something else. You don't have to worry about that just yet, people consoled me. You could work in a call centre, someone else suggested. Now, there's nothing wrong with working in a call centre, but it seemed to me people were just casting around for jobs that required zero standing. And there had to be something more. My best asset, my brain, hadn't been affected in the fall. The truth is, the expectations for my life and what I would do with it were suddenly much lower. My own expectations were lower. I started to doubt myself and my prospects. Did disabled people work? I mean, I must have, but I couldn't remember seeing anyone in a wheelchair. Not on the tube or the streets of London. I certainly couldn't remember seeing someone in a wheelchair at work, in real life or on the telly. They must do, surely, but there were no role models. It was about this time that I took a call from someone named Anne-Marie from some outfit called Attitude. She said they produced a weekly television program about people living with disability, and they wanted to come and film with me. Whoa. Did you say people living with a disability? You mean disabled people? Just a minute there, Anne-Marie. She continued to tell me about the logistics involved in filming, but I was only half listening. Disabled? That was me. I hadn't yet thought of this thing as permanent, and disabled seemed so permanent and very problematic. Anyway, the short film was to focus on what I was trying to do to regain my mobility. I based myself in Te Awamutu. I told you I was going to great lengths to learn how to walk again. To follow a program called Reactivate. For 4 hours a day, I was working with some lovely, but essentially misguided souls who thought if they matched me for hard work and positive energy, they'd get me back on my feet. Well, the Attitude film crew were not going to get the scoop on my miracle cure, but I was about to gain much more than my 15 minutes of fame. I enjoyed being interviewed, and I was fascinated by the whole tele experience. It was a couple of months later, and before that program had gone to air, I was called up by Attitude for a second lot of filming. This time they were interviewing several people in wheelchairs about their thoughts on stem cells, a controversial treatment for people with spinal cord injury. The film was taking place at the home of Robin Scott Vincent, the producer of the program. She was doing the interview and began by asking me, would I, given the chance, take the risk, be first in line for the stem cells, a human guinea pig? I'd already given this some thought. No, I would not. I've had it with potential cures. It's time to stop this obsession with walking and get on and start living. After the camera stopped rolling, Robin asked me what I was planning to do. I said I was thinking maybe about further study, completing the English and media and television degree I'd started part-time before my accident. The conversation seemed to kind of morph into a job interview, and before I knew it, I was asked if I'd be interested in joining the production team as a researcher and reporter. The funny thing is, when I was younger, and people ask that perennial question, what do you want to do when you grow up? My answer was always journalist. Life had just taken a different path. But here I was, about to embark on an internship, fulfilling a lifelong dream. I remember my first day heading to work. I was nervous and excited. I was stuck in traffic and people around me looked bored and stressed. Not me. I was smiling from ear to ear. I remember thinking, I am stuck in traffic. I am commuting. Yes. That was part of the daily grind. I was much like everyone else. It would be difficult to overstate the impact starting work had on me, my sense of self-worth, and my confidence in the future. I couldn't have known it at the time, but I had an inkling I'd fallen on my feet, so to speak. I'd gone from thinking my ability to make any kind of meaningful contribution was gone, but here I was in my dream job. A dramatic way to get there, admittedly, but my dream job nonetheless. So I started working with Attitude Pictures 7 years ago now, as a researcher, reporter, and presenter. I've met some amazing people. From interviewing veteran soldiers in the US about their mental distress after time in Iraq and Afghanistan, to talking with disabled women about attitudes towards disability in Samoa. Today I'm associate producer and head of content. I work with the team to decide which stories we tell and liaise with the directors and producer, overseeing the 30 episodes we produce each year. For those who don't know, Attitude is a small production company specialising in human stories with a focus on disability. About a quarter of our team have disabilities themselves, including 5 of the senior management team. 3 of the 5 senior managers. And disabilities across the team range from mental health issues to intellectual or learning disabilities and physical disabilities. And we believe that this lived experience gives us an edge as storytellers. Our weekly program has been screening on TV1 for 10 years now. It's morphed from an upbeat magazine-style program to a series of in-depth documentaries, which allows us now to get to the real heart of the story. The disability isn't the main focus, but it's something we don't shy away from. Our style has evolved to the point where the disabled person is the storyteller. Gone are the presenters and much of the voiceover. It's the main character's voice that you hear. And it's then that the viewer takes a walk in someone else's shoes. It's then that we realise we have more in common than we have different. Excuse me. Helping people tell their stories is something I'm really passionate about. And the first stage in this process is finding out as much as I can about my subject. This is a great job for really nosy people like me. One of the first questions they normally ask is, why have you decided to share your story? Well, we don't pay people, so it's good if they have another motivation. The overwhelming majority tell me they think it might help others understand what my life is really like, or it may help others going through a similar experience. I know we've filmed Mark Grantham and his family, who you'll be lucky to hear from, I think, later today. See him at the back there. They had these kind of motivations to share their story. And we had a shared mission with Mark to show that this young man in a wheelchair selling chocolates on the streets of Newmarket had a brain, a very large heart, and a desire to help those less fortunate than himself. The thing I know and Mark knows, that people make assumptions and perhaps think that he has very little autonomy over his own life. But you'd see in his film, Mark's very much in the driving seat. But he and his family had to work hard to transition him into supported but independent living arrangement where he could make his own decisions about how to live his life. Getting to that place wasn't without its challenges. But it's these challenges and how we deal with them that is the basis of all good stories. Whether it's a book, a fiction film, or a documentary, the central character will have to confront issues or challenges. The character makes a series of moves or decisions to overcome and move forward. In most stories, there's a pivotal moment when the stakes are at their highest, the climax. Then, in the final act, we find out what happens. This is the resolution. If it's a Hollywood story, the resolution is all tied up in a neat bow and everyone's pretty happy. In real life, in the tying up of our transition stories, it isn't always neat. The knots may not be as secure as we'd like. There may be a few loose threads, and it might not even be the outcome we were hoping for. But the one thing that all stories have in common is a main character who has changed in some way. They've faced the challenges, and whatever the outcome, they've grown, they've learned something about themselves, about others, or about the world around them. We know these stories have the power to shift perceptions about what living with a disability is really like. And we know that by sharing these stories, we can learn from others' experiences. We begin to raise expectations and imagine better for our own lives and those of our friends and family members. After 10 years and over 400 episodes of Attitude, we had a fair few stories to share. That's why a year ago we launched AttitudeLive.com, a fully accessible web platform where people can watch and read stories of people from New Zealand and around the world. People with all sorts of disabilities, travelling, going to school, trying to find the right school, working, parenting, battling the system and making the system work for them. There are experts and there are organisations to support our transitions, but there's nothing like the personal experience of someone who's been there. I certainly learned most of what I need to know about life in a wheelchair from other people in wheelchairs. That's why I now go to the spinal unit in Auckland to meet with women who are newly injured, to share my story and what I've learned. And I'm not sure if it's been at all clear actually, but the major transition in my life was a mental one. It wasn't planned and I didn't follow a program, but it was a natural progression, a passage from fighting to acceptance to expecting more for my life. That mental transition happened at exactly the right time, so that I was open to an amazing opportunity for meaningful employment when it presented itself. So over the next couple of days, I urge you to share your stories. You're going to share your stories. I urge you to listen and let those stories fire your imagination to expect more for yourself and for your loved ones. And that by listening to these stories, we can learn how to better support each other on our passage from one stage, state or place, to the next and beyond. Thank you.
So we'd like to thank you very much for sharing your story with us, Tanya. Thank you. I'd like to ask Tanya Black, our CE, to come up and say a few words.
Look, I just wanted to extend my welcome to you and to wish you well for the next few days as we share stories around our theme, success in the movement of transition. So I'd like to welcome you to our campfire for these next few days and the opportunity to share the stories that you have, to listen and to learn. And for me, this also extends perhaps a message of the need for simplicity, to strip away complexity in the systems in which we work and live, whichever role it is that we have within our community, disabled person, worker in the sector, policy maker, governance holder. Complexity is the nemesis of success and transition in my view, and I look forward to learn the simplicity of your stories. And I heard some really nice messages from yours this morning. Thank you very much. Kia ora, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou.